Kitten on a journey of perfect of discovery. Kitten on a journey of discovery is the song name. That's about perfect. All right, might as well fucking get going. All right, so I'm almost certain what started me down this rabbit hole this time is I'm in the process of organizing my files, my personal files, and which is a daunting task to begin with. But and there's a lot missing. There's a lot of really important shit missing, which is tragic. I seem to have lost a great deal of my personal photos, which is tragic, but I'm sure that somewhere, whether they be in message archives or whatever, that they're somewhere retrievable, at least the vast majority of them, or will come up at some point throughout the process. Um, so I've made considerable progress in this endeavor, and the remaining folders, like the remaining folders in the archive to sort, are either incredibly dense, or they are just kind of like oversaturated. Like my original concepts, I've just spent way too much time on that, and it's easy. I've pretty much already done the entire process of it. So that led me to my NFTs and shitcoins folder, and this started reminding me of a website in particular that I was looking for, 3dtestosterone.net, which I will kind of link. We'll circle back to that eventually. But although I'm glad that I went back down this particular path, just because, in the sense that it's kind of led me to like relevant connections that can, affect, well, somewhat relevant connections. They seem to be pretty stagnant, at least the majority of the things that I've come across so far. But so I'm glad that I went down this particular path, just because nothing particularly notable other than the either infiltration or just like overall setup of the dude Chris that I was talking to, which is not really noteworthy. It's just the most noteworthy, but nothing considerably overt or dramatic or noteworthy has really taken place in a long time, which I am clearly fine with. And myself personally, a very common misconception, I guess, is, which we'll explore like point by point through this. But a very common misconception is that I'm that I myself am somehow responsible for continuing to like come back to this or whatever. I think it's ridiculous. I think that that doesn't really need to be explained. Um, but overall, it is a necessity to some extent to like in order to fully move on with life or just like creative endeavors or whatever in general, which again I'll elaborate on further later. Um, and certainly in the pursuit of any tangible, meaningful, um, connections or like ambitious fucking attempts at anything in life, then there has to be some sort of cohesive um, and definitive like response or rebuttal to all of this stuff. I think because you can either, and I don't really feel compelled to do so. I don't really feel it's not like a compulsive or an impulsive reaction anymore. And I was kind of talking about that the other day. It's more so just a general necessity that, and I think that that is highlighted in the infiltration and slash or just overall setup of the random Chris dude that I was speaking with. But you know, like I've articulated recently, I think that the interest, that the overall interest of this has more or less drastically reduced. I would say fallen off, but I will instead say drastically reduced. There is an element of danger in that, just simply because, and as since discovered, the more malicious and reckless individuals with involvement are apparently, at least to some degree, still just as committed and you know, whatever. So there is an element of danger in focus or attention or investment falling off on a broader scale. I obviously view that as a positive, and I do not really know how to articulate the fact. I don't know really how to articulate my absolute disinterest in engaging with this really to any extent. Since I myself have been so disengaged in pretty much every aspect for quite some time, at least the summer, I feel like I can obviously kind of view things with just a more like fresh and focused perspective, but that still doesn't it's not indicative of any sort of desire for a really engagement of any kind. I am very unmotivated to do this. I'm motivated to the extent that, again, I think that it's a necessity, and I'm motivated to the extent that there is a certain degree of interest, certainly certainly like newfounded interest with that fresher perspective. But regardless, a long running narrative, at least when convenient, that is, of course, um, is that there is any like sustainable, that there's any desire or even um, a delusion, really, of a sustainable future engaging with this slash these communities under these circumstances in any sort of positive way. That becomes a lot more nuanced and a lot more complex once you begin to dig into it more. But, and I will elaborate on those more as we kind of go through it. But I do indeed I can assure you unequivocally that not only do I not really want to focus any time or energy or thought onto this, but certainly not in this context, in this way. And will probably just leave that particular point here for right now, just simply because it does begin to branch off into much more complex subcategories. Um, but really, I mean, even I guess the only thing that I will kind of like, add as an with an asterisk to that is that, for one, we'll circle back around to it, and for two, that when considering many other developing factors just in the world right now, as far as what I wanted to do as a content creator, and what I am passionate about doing, just like on a legitimate like baseline level, it is somewhat a lost pursuit, a lost cause to like pursue those things at this point. Now, that being said, I myself, on a personal level, obviously still want to do the things that I'm passionate about doing, um, and that I enjoy doing. However, how that looks moving forward in consideration of these other factors developing in the world right now, such as the kind of mass exodus that is currently undergoing, and that I foresee happening with social media in general, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I could list several more examples. Not to exclude, of course, all of the baggage that comes along with this stuff. The future of what I want to do, and my life in general, requires a reassessment and a reset and a it requires a reset and a reassessment of just things on a broader scale. And there's really no point in trying to articulate this any further, just simply because and this will be the case for the majority of the things that I have to say. But I have endlessly tried to express this to an endless amount of people with absolutely no effect, apparently. not any meaningful effect for me in my own personal life, or even in, on a communication level between me and those people, or whatever. But um, so that's kind of how I got here. That's what I'm in the process of doing. It's what I continually try to do. Although I will say that, due to various different factors, there was not much uh, like progress in those pursuits for quite some time. Now I feel like there is. I still feel like that progress is extraordinarily delayed, and in certain aspects, like in certain regards, still a pointless pursuit because and again, uh, negative effects really haven't manifested themselves in some time. Um, but the lingering presence, not to mention the inability to properly communicate the circumstances to people around me, um, is problematic, obviously. So those are all kind of like pin cushions that we will pull the threads of later, or like pins in the cushion that we will pull the threads of later. It's kind of like an introduction, but one of the steps in the process of that reassessment of what the future of my life and the future of pursuing the things that I'm passionate about and all of that is, bringing organization and categorization to my digital files, just simply because they have become so extraordinarily fucked over many processes of computer resets and fucking, accounts and VPNs and authenticators and cloud drives and fucking, all sorts of shit. So I have indeed made considerable progress in that regard. That's kind of what led me to, this particular folder. And the resurgence of this concept, coupled with the circumstances I just outlined, have kind of melded and married each other into a decent opportunity at reshaping at least the like parameters of the circumstances that box in my life, if not the okay. And yeah, I'm just gonna leave that. I'll just leave that there for now. So with all of that being said, we will now embark on the ridiculous fucking goose chase that all of this is, with no real I should just preface it by saying that there is, at least on the surface level, no real purpose nor like point at the end of it. So I should tell her if she's leaving. Oh shit. Now, all of that pretext really fails to properly convey the big important points and so on and so forth. But um, I do think that it's a necessity. A There is the potential. I'll say this: there is the potential for somewhat positive outcomes, but I myself have become so passive, I guess is a good word, unbothered, unconcerned, unmotivated, resistant, spiteful, I guess, in the idea of doing it this way, just simply because I think that the process of getting to where I feel comfortable with there being a considerable difference made. I feel like the process of getting to that point is the point, like the corn maze of it all, and the lack of conclusion. And this is something that I will elaborate on here shortly, because I had an experience this morning while exploring a newfound platform, and a somewhat back and forth interaction, if you very loose terminology there, but with an anonymous person, of course, who was trying to convey subliminally, subliminal support, and so on and so forth, and in turn making fun of this. I'll document all of this momentarily, but it was just incredibly frustrating for me, because it's like we've been doing this, and we have done this in so many iterations. We have done this for quite literally so many years, and I know that it is not the fault of other people. I have a better understanding, a better outlook on why people are so hesitant and so from my perspective, just ridiculously whatever in terms of involvement and awareness of this, and how they choose to go about expressing their support, and so on and so forth. I have a more realistic outlook on why that has played out in the way that it has, but still, to me, especially in the context of people who are now at this point long since, you know, like I'm talking about my real friends, my, family members, people that I really knew and were really connected with in real life. All of those people, all of those relationships are so, I'm so far removed from this at this point that they almost, as ridiculous as it seems to be, those are now, they have now become irrelevant. Like I've discussed in the context of Kaylee before, and as it similarly applies to many other people, there is no resolving those relationships. So, but the reason for that, and again, this is another one of the most prevalent, uh, I don't even know if I want to say misconceptions, because in, more realistic terms, it's more so manipulations. It's one of the more prevalent manipulations is that, the reason for the falling out of those friendships or those relationships, or many other different elements of different things, is one that is rooted in, exposure, or embarrassment, or so on and so forth. But when we're talking about the, relationships and the connections that were actually meaningful and were actually, you know real, like in real life, those, and then you could even extend that out. You could even extend that out to more, um, to smaller concepts such as jobs. I've never been fired from a job this entire time, and nobody has, nobody of significance, even, I was gonna say, maybe, maybe excluding Deshauna, but then that's not really true based on, things that would happen years later. Um, but you know this is what was the, legitimate cause of the deterioration of those friendships, and what is, in turn, and always has been so frustrating to me about involvement and awareness by people who, not only, I won't even say pretend, by people who really do and did care about me and my life, and people who I really did care about. Um, though that has all the and not to mention the the aspects which are instead cited, like those, like the embarrassment and the exposure and blah 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 blah. None of that would be relevant without the, obvious denial and participation of people outside of the context of just weird ass fucking hateful trolls. Weird ass fucking hateful trolls would be one thing that I do, and that I always have, cared very little about. Okay? But I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me kind of wrap that up, although not neatly. Let me wrap it up by saying that this morning, backtracking a little bit, this morning I had such a familiar, interaction with some anonymous person in real time on this newly discovered platform that I was exploring, where they were trying to express, some sort of supportive messaging, toward me, with subliminal advice, and arguing with the, malicious figures that are inhabiting the same space. Um, and from my perspective, it's just so it just is and always has been such a ridiculous concept to me for people who claim to, or pretend to, or who actually do slash did care about me, and who I held meaningful relationships with for, in some cases, over 10 years. It has always been a ridiculous concept and an inexcusable betrayal to me for you to directly with me, as I'm engaging with you on a real human, like real life, face to face, or at least name to name basis, either deny or through admission, quite obviously, pretend as if you have no awareness and to don't support me in any sort of real sense at all, yet then we'll get on a fake internet profile and argue with the people who are responsible. It's so ridiculous to me. I've never understood that, and that it is so inexcusable to me. Now again, to re-emphasize, I do have a refreshed perspective on how that could come to be, but I'm still confident and comfortable in my assertion that that is an inexcusable betrayal, because to me, I wouldn't, bow to the forces, or to the pressure, in sacrifice of my friendship with, some of those more meaningful relationships, absolutely. But even then, even further, a lot more of the more casual relationships that were, affected by all of this. Now, in some regard, you can say, oh, well, that's just like, dumb loyalty or whatever. And in some cases, with hindsight, that's true. In the more meaningful cases, and as if that's something that I'm supposed to be embarrassed about, as if it's something to be embarrassed about, that just because, relationships in general nowadays seem to be so transactional, to begin with, and loyalty, is so, I won't even say it's paper thin, it's translucent, like it's just non-existent. But, and to the extent that this has been expressed by the people, by those actual people themselves, or as these hateful ass fucking people that have either infiltrated or impersonated them to convey this message instead, this was a long running, sort of counterpoint to my hysteria and mania, that, well, you thought that I actually like cared about you because we worked together for 4 years 5 years ago. And it's like, okay, yeah, in hindsight I did have a bit of naive or childish perception of mutual loyalty, and that was a fault of mine. But that's not in turn going to make me retract nor regret the fact that just because some time has passed, or just because um, whatever, that I would just immediately like sell you out, or like I'm not going to be embarrassed about that. So that's always been a weird concept to me. Of course, in hindsight, that was, I was loyal to a fault, or had at least a, perceived, um, well, I don't want to say that, just because, not because it's not true, but because it will ineffectively play into the exaggerated point that they in turn make. God. So, um, that's a little bit of pretext. The last little bit of pretext that I'll give you is that, um, kind of piggybacking off of the point that I made earlier about how I think that this is the point. Um, the endless like rabbit, and I'm glad that I'm gonna to bring this particular concept up now and address this now here in the beginning rather than later when I thought that I was going to, but it ties in perfectly right here. So to piggyback off of the earlier mentioned um, idea that this endless kind of circle of exploration, or whatever, is both a waste of my time, but also um, a a useless pursuit, just because um, it will, it just kind of, it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle, and again, that is also I consider the omission by people, or to be such a inexcusable betrayal, because especially from people who claim to be supportive, because you claim to be supportive, yet you have watched me waste so much of my time, trying to confirm what I know to be true, but I only cannot, confidently convey or react to, because of the denial of everyone else. So you then feed me to the beast in that regard, and the truth has never really been that elusive to me, nor has the uh, retaliation, or um, nor has the retaliation, been really a concern of mine, outside of the context of just doing what I was doing when all of this began. But neither has the like initiation really been attractive to me. So, but what I'm saying with that is that I am constantly, again, like I said in the beginning, there's really only a few kind of like approaches that you can take to all of this. You can either have passive fucking nonchalance, or non-concern, which in real time is pretty effective and probably the healthiest approach, um, and probably the more progressive approach. However, it's still like just massively consequential fucking circumstances that any rational, person would want to resolve with themselves. But so I could either approach it that way passively. I could either approach it directly, which is kind of like, which this is kind of in hybrid with the next possible, potential approach, um, the potential method of approach. But you could either, um, I could either, approach it directly, somewhat like this, which only again feeds the beast because then I'm giving them content, or I could, um, approach it in a, you know, like I guess in an investigative sort of way, trying to get to the bottom of it, which again, uh, just fulfills the cycle. Every one of those scenarios is kind of has been uh, jerry rigged into a um, method of continuation, right? So, and then on the other end of that, on the other side of that coin, I feel like from a public perception standpoint, I am simultaneously kind of faulted for not doing any of those three and slash or doing all of those three, right? So it's like people oftentimes, you know, like I'm not about to be running around the internet fucking arguing with strangers, and nor nor am I going to be running around arguing with people in general. It's not how, it's not an interest of mine to be arguing with people from high school in any context, okay? And but people often, say like, project this aura of like pussiness because like I don't want to get this deep and this elaborate with it just simply because it would be so incredibly time consuming. But I have for first of all, at first I, you know, protected not in allegiance to, you know, it's crazy. It is so crazy when you really backtrack, and when I really backtrack and think about the origins of this and how all of this played out, and this will come into play in a moment when I read you this ridiculous shit that should not receive any attention nor reaction nor response at all. Um, but God, but I fucking, I shielded people who, for legitimate reasons. I shielded my best friend's brother. I shielded, a fucking father, that had children. I protected these people, in turn protecting pieces of shit who I didn't, have any allegiance to or whatever. You know, I did that to my own demise for like 6 months to a year, and then and then I've called out these people by name repeatedly and relentlessly, and you know been met in public spaces, you know just been met with like gaslighting and crazy making and denial and so on and so forth, and then I get the like reputation of like pussy or whatever. And oh my god, this is all so stupid to me. It is so, I do think that it's a necessity, and I do think that um I have to kind of force myself to do it so that I can stop literally just like wasting time and looking over my shoulder and whatnot, because now that my life is more or less put back together, um, that that just kind of regenerates a uh, you know a fucking period of like stagnation. And then in the absence of doing something like this effectively, uh I then can't pursue anything else just simply because, of the fucking, you know, I really don't care about that anymore. I really don't care about that anymore. Even more so now that I've re-explored this realm of it. It's put a lot of perspective. It's given me a lot of perspective as far, as relating to, um, and this is liberating. This is a liberating realization, but it's given me a lot of perspective in the pointlessness of revisiting old concepts that have now been hijacked and completely oversaturated and become outdated by other people, which is fine, but it's also kind of like that's what I was saying in the very beginning of it to that stupid fucking bitch, Jessica, you know what I mean? So, it's and I had kind of convinced myself, and I stand by this to a pretty strong extent. I think that attention and investment and um, involvement and so on and so forth, I think that that's dying out. I think that it's probably, had a considerable drop uh, you know, in engagement, I guess, reach. I don't know, but that again then presents an entirely new set of circumstances that is almost more concerning because then I'm just left with the sociopaths. Um, so now it's my day off, and I do have things, and again, another, well, just one last point that I want to make before, just one last pretextual point that I want to make. Um, all of the shit that I was doing, whether it be aesthetically, whether it be conceptually, whether it be, whatever, not only have those things really been hijacked by these people, by this shit, and, um, just completely hijacked, for one, but it's also now where I was and of course, this is and has been to me for at least the predominant chunk of time. I won't say the entire time, but I will say a vastly predominant chunk of the time, um, been obvious to me that, but I was being told through infiltrated conversations and impersonated anonymous accounts that were then only deemed relevant and noteworthy as a result of the denial and the um, uh, omission and the whatever of the people who were actually close to me. um, it's like, not uh, it's like I had Deshauna lecturing me and belittling me about the fact that I wanted to make videos revolving around certain topics, including aliens and Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And, I was just completely crucified for discussing these topics and for these being the topics of interest. And now some of the biggest creators on every platform have built up, massive um, careers doing exactly that. So I'm not going to sit around and be bitter about that. And in certain to certain extents, I am glad that I didn't find myself in that position, for various different reasons. Obviously, that's a very complex topic to navigate, as are most of these very condensed versions of very complex topics that require a lot of very detailed and acute attention, attention to acute details. Um, and that, in closing, is again one of the most prevalent and manipulated aspects of all of this, is that because of, and then I have to sit and watch people bitch and whine and complain and moan about the fact that I am so whatever. um but in a legitimate, and again, mind you, that this is something that I have challenged the people who are responsible for this for from the very beginning. But in a, I'm left here, and again, this is the point, and this isn't something that I've ever been confused about in regards to the malicious people who are responsible for this, not in regards to any of the collateral uh, contributors or collaborators, but I'm left here to fucking spin around in circles and have to connect all of these fucking dots and topics and shit of things that are largely irrelevant and sound like I'm the crazy one, when in reality, I'm not the one who brings these super fucking concise, ridiculous points, into the public conversation, nor do I have any legitimate uh, uh, method of rebuttal or response, just simply because everyone, allows this fucking coded clandestine bullshit to be the lay of the land. And uh, I have quite a few. One in particular comes to mind that maybe I should play for you, just to kind of uh, land at this point. But um, and again, even more so than people losing interest and losing engage, not engaging or being invested in this, more so, I think that also a lot of people have realized, the extent of the bullshit and the manipulation by these crazy fucking people. But I think that people are afraid of them, and for strangers or whatever, I understand that. For the people who are closer to me, I understand it to an extent. It's just like that's not what anybody would receive from me. And I can absolutely confidently say that in regards to the real life friends that I lost long ago. But even from the perspective of just a person using the internet and kind of watching this all unfold, I don't think that I wouldn't really remain quiet and submissive to this either. Watching this all happen to somebody, and then just like fucking, I don't know. I promise to God, I promise to God, I promise to God, I am so fucking disinterested to the point of just absolute fucking like lethargic, like fucking, I don't know. I am so disinterested in talking about this shit or even thinking about it, and it's not, as I think is clear and evident now, but it's not something that's consuming my life anymore. It's not something that's consuming my mind anymore. And I just cannot fucking articulate how over, how completely fucking, how completely, I can't even think of another word to use other than just disinterested. I cannot fucking explain to you how absolutely unequivocally disinterested I am with arguing with dudes from high school about what the fuck I drink. You know what I mean? And that's the most like that's the absolute most like fucking freeze dried condensed summary of it. But on that is in reality what it is. I'm talking to a dude that I meet on a fucking dating app that I'm only perusing because I can't peruse social media or fucking I don't have any friends anymore and all of that shit. Which again are things that I'm just not unbothered by at this point. I just truly am unbothered by at this point. Um, all of those people that I've lost, I have went through the phases of losing them as friends, and such a significant amount of time has passed since then, and I'm so confident in my view of what happened and at peace with how I handled it myself, that it's just not something that I find myself bothered with by now. But it just is what it is. In many of those cases, it's been multiple years since that has happened, and I have never been the type. I have never been the type to fucking not move on from shit, you know? And now the crowd erupts in laughter and blah, 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 because it's like, okay, buddy, whatever. But just conceptually consider the fact that, you know, for one, I'm about to, like, show you the things that I'm about to show you. And then, for two, a dude from a dating app messaged me months ago. I don't remember the exact, timeline of events, but we very casually spoke over the course of one night, long time ago, only for him to again reach out months and months later, and for, that, and this is nothing of significance to me at all, but it's in terms of that, like, relationship. I won't even call it a relationship, not even an acquaintanceship, not even a fucking, whatever. But long story short, for that communication to be broken down by either infiltration or just an elaborate setup, and for the substance of that to be what I drink, among various other ridiculous fucking, like, immature isn't even the word, like, fucking, like, whatever, I don't even know. And then of course you add another layer to that, where there is the potential for that to be, a love interest of mine, and his inability to fucking grapple with his sexuality, or fucking, whatever. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that I'm out here living my life, unconcerned with social media, unconcerned with these people, unconcerned with the, astronomical fucking degree of devastation that has been, just thrust into every aspect of my life by these circumstances, and just, literally living my life unconcerned, unbothered, uninvolved, unengaged, and fucking bothered. And then for it to again and then for it to again manifest itself into the most random and ridiculous communication of possible. And then in the pursuit of, the, oh my god, oh my god. And then when you begin to, break it down even further, like, I'll say, like, I scrolled through Twitter the other night, um, even after, so, and there's still the presence of, certain individuals. The identity of those individuals are much unknown, but I will say that at certain points in my life, I have literally not been able to open a social media app and it not be entirely, completely filled with subliminal references to me in my life, and subliminal references and reactions to me in my life. Even now, or now, even in times when I would expect that, it seems to have, been smothered out to some extent. I was quite surprised, just recently, where it seemed like where I was expecting more, discussion and engagement, and it wasn't as prevalent as I expected it to be. That's a good thing. That is a good thing. Make no mistake. There is no, there's no FOMO. There is no fucking, uh, oh my God, please pay attention to me. No, I have said this unequivocally for years. I want 90% of, I have never been interested in this, and even when I was interested in it, I have never been like, I don't know. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Now, ugh, my God. And I hate having to sit here. I have invested so much time, energy, effort, money, resources, mind space, fucking every single thing imaginable. I have invested copious amounts into consuming and reacting to and investigating and exploring and discussing and everything, and being, having my time, dictated, my time and my actions dictated by, or having to, I have, it is limitless, and it is ridiculous, the pieces of myself and my life and my relationships and my potential and my career and my everything that have been given to this slime ball, that at the core of it are two dudes that I went to high school with and never, met once each. That's what's at the core of this slime ball that has consumed so much of my life. And does it suck? Yeah. Is it annoying? Yeah. Are those, is the extent of that even something that I am bothered with at this point? No. And would that, would it have, would that, that is what is so inexcusable and unforgivable to me about, people who claim to be supportive, is that it would have never, ever, 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 and even still, even taking the legitimacy of that into consideration, the extent of those effects are still more, fictional, exaggerated, um, and fucking perceptual and and propagandic than they are in real life. And so there are, and I'm so resistant to even acknowledge this because, again, this is something that I have been villainized for in the past. Even when, even with the inclusion of supportive people and, you know, legitimate friends and so on and so forth, I have always been villainized for acknowledging the intriguing, interesting, cool um, aspects of all of this shit. Um, so I'm so resistant to do that, but again, I'm not gonna sit here and fucking be hateful as, you know, be a hateful fucking person and be mad at the world and fucking, like, it's just not in my character, it's not in my interest, it's not in my plans. And um I cannot move forward in really any regard with this shit lingering around and not addressing it in, you know, some type of way. So for the 800th millionth time, that's what we're gonna do. And how long has it been? Probably about at least an hour. Yeah, an hour and 6 minutes of a fucking introduction that, from an outsider's perspective, especially when sliced up and you know, so on and so forth, will be deemed as irrelevant and incoherent and you know, the ramblings of a drug addicted madman, um, which is fine. You know, the psychopath or whatever, fucking, you know, whatever. Uh, which is fine because, well, it's not fine. Only, I was gonna say it's fine because I can show you what that actually looks like in practice. Again, I feel like the public has a pretty good understanding of the fact that that is the case in regards to the opposition or whatever. I feel like that's been a long-standing fucking thing for a long time. I just feel like they're so fucking psychotic and crazy and so fucking prevalent that that people are just, you know, scared. People would rather engage with it as whatever. I don't care. I don't even care to follow that one through, but one other thing, I just want to kind of emphasize. I saw this. You know, okay, so this is how I can spin it, how I can transition into that. If, you know, these people are so convinced and they're so confident in the fact that, like, right now I'm sounding like a rambling crazy person with, like, mental disorders and, like, whatever, um, but I promise you, like, and I've got a pretty good, well, I can't say that. I was gonna say I have a pretty good gauge on people. Don't care, like, people, if you were to go up to the average person and just begin discussing this shit from your perspective, not from my perspective, but from your perspective, and I'm speaking more so of the people who have either developed intense parasocial relationships with me, or even more so, like, more specifically, more directly, the people who are responsible for this. If you tried, and this is exactly why you can't, you know, prove your points by direct, like, engagement or whatever, with me, or rooted in truth, or so on and so forth. Because if you tried to begin talking about this with the average person, you would be institutionalized, like, legitimately, um, truthfully. And I'm beginning to, like, I guess, okay. I mean, that's it. That's all for introduction. It's been a fucking hour of introduction. Um, it's been an hour of introduction, and let me tell you, everything that I've said, I have been saying for 5 years, for the most part. For 5 years. And I really, and 90% of 90% of the people who are listening would I not only rather be not engaging with to begin with, or at the very least be enthusiastically engaging with you about something else, about other topics, about more relevant topics than what I drink. But 90% of the audience would rather, either disengage or hear about those topics. And I think that the responsible people at the top, I think that that's been the case for a long time. Like I said the other day, I made a commitment to myself recently that I wanted to ensure that I was like 15 minutes past too late. And I feel like we're at like 25, and that's so okay, as long as that actually follows through. So I truthfully want to effectively accomplish the goal of very concisely addressing any and all relevant issues regarding this, so that simply because there is nobody around me right now that has been around for years, or that knew me prior to this, or that realistically probably has any real understanding of who I am, or how all of this came to be, or whatever. And I want to conclusively, it cannot be done in a day, in a week, in a year. No, that's a lie. A year. I mean, a week if I really committed myself, honestly. But committing this time to it right now. Like, I want to say, okay, well, now we're done. Like, let's move on. Like, let's go do cool shit. Let's talk about cool shit right now. Let's make that transition right now. I wanted to make that transition a fucking 5 years ago. But you can't. Or I can't. Or we can't. Because we have this gang of sociopaths to fucking deal with, and then the opposing fucking fuck you guys, fuck everybody, okay? I really am disinterested in doing this, and that's why I have to do it. That's why I have to do it. But my God, So I went looking for this website that. Okay, so my discovery of NFTs, I always knew that there was some financial component to this from the very beginning. I thought, and I'm sure that it began with the monetization of content on social media, like particularly, Facebook and stuff like that. And there are, subtle subliminal references to that being the case. That this it began in Africa, and like if you made it out of Africa, whatever, whatever. Um, my this is not going to be a this is not going to be a full, complete, concise timeline of everything that's happened, although I do have the receipts, and I will, with an engaging, realistic, audience who we're engaged, we're on the same level, the same foundation of fucking truth and understanding and openness, um, and and um, in response to any rebuttals or any accusations or any misconceptions or any um, lies or theories or lore or so on or so forth, and with anyone, with Elon Musk, with Colin Gruntman, with Devin Kaufman, with Penguin Zero, with anybody who has any questions, concerns, or contradictions to make, I would and will freely discuss this in extraordinary length with anybody on a face to face, person to person public platform. And I have said that, I have challenged that endlessly, going back to quite literally the first 6 months of this. Don't forget that with Sandra Whitworth, I endlessly challenged that. And don't forget that I have called out people by name in almost every medium, on almost every platform, in almost every way, at almost every phase of all of this. I have publicly, as myself, challenged people directly by their real names, by their anonymous social media personas, so on and so forth. And we have yet to this day had anybody who would accept that challenge in any sort of long form, realistic, uh, even there. I think the closest that I've ever come was a space that I did with Brandon, a Twitter space that I did with Brandon, with that fucking. I said he was a guy from. Wasn't Ireland. I don't know. But I did have a very. It was about an hour and a half, voice to voice argument with somebody in a Twitter space hosted by Brandon, Subject X, a long time ago, in which, and that was the closest I've probably ever come to having a direct argument with someone highly involved in this, a higher up in this, and he sounded ridiculous. And upon further, you know, request or whatever, I could probably find that link, unless Brandon were to go delete it in the meantime. But even then, you know, and instead of sending me fishing for a link, instead of sending me through a corn maze, they could instead just, uh, you know, again, step up to the plate to prove, their points once more or whatever. So, but this is not going to be like a full comprehensive analysis because there are just literally there are so many paths to go down that are just so fucking filled to the brim with content, and 99% of that content being absolutely irrelevant. Like, in order to properly document this entire thing, think about it. We begin in 2020 and go all the way through to today in 2025, and that begins with conversation threads with Jessica and Paige, and then Cameroon, and then oh my god, and then fucking, I mean, it's endless. It is endless. It is endless, 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 and 98% of the shit contains absolutely zero value to anybody. Zero value to anybody, other than being a very intriguing story. I will say that. And clearly the influence and the inspiration from the earliest days of my interests and my aesthetic and my personality and all of that stuff. And this is not to, belittle anybody, but it's undeniable, and the relevance of those things is undeniable because it is it's all over culture in every way. Look for a grid in a YouTube video. Look for a ripped paper effect. You know what I mean? Look for, like, you know what I mean? Look at any of the trending topics in the last few years. So, and I don't want to toot my own horn about it, but I deserve to at the exact same time, And there have been good, and that's not to say I'm the only one either. Linda has been doing this for 37 years, but but the predominant hijacking of, again, my aesthetic and my traits and my interests and my research and my ideas and my, all that shit, seemingly the predominant inspired hijacking, what they've done with that content is just dumb. And from a comedic perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a just vibes perspective, just purely vibes alone, the entire internet and world and life of pretty much everyone who has even accidentally passed through this realm of existence that all of this has become, would be so much better and more entertaining. And if everyone didn't allow these crazy sociopaths to be at the helm. And now I'm disinterested because of everyone's apparent interest in that. Like, if that's what everyone is on board with culture being, particularly internet culture and all of that stuff, if it is shit porn and meaningless pump and dump crypto coins and shit like that, you know, certain aspects of these things I don't want to look down on. Certain aspects of these things I don't want to belittle. The vast majority of the people involved and their in engagement and their whatever of of shit posting or whatever, the vast majority of that I don't want to belittle or shit down or shit on or whatever, pun intended. But if that's like what literally like what people on social media and if that's what people want, which seemingly it is, that's fine. It's just not for me, and I don't want to engage. That's why I haven't. Uh-huh. So because I don't want to engage. You understand what I'm saying? And I certainly will question the point and purpose and legitimacy and depth and like execution and all of that shit when it affects every aspect of, or has affected every aspect of my life. That certainly adds a layer of scrutiny in its assessment from my perspective, as I'm sure you can understand is what I want to say, but clearly you may understand it, you just don't care, which is fine. That's fine, but at point then comes where it's like, why am I spending my day off doing this? Um, so, my God. My God. Oh, don't be a bitch. To what extent we're really going to dig into it, I don't know. Is this going to be something that's completed today? Probably not. Is it going to be something where, is it going to be something that I continue on past today? Up for debate. I want to say it depends on the effect that it has, but really, I'm not really going to be measuring the effect that it has, to be honest. So, again, is it going to be something that preludes the is it going to be something that preludes me attempting to move forward with my life and my creative endeavors again? Yes. What does that look like? I don't know, because the types of things that I want to do and the way about going with the way about doing those things are not, it is a pointless endeavor to pursue under these circumstances. So, and I'm okay with that and have accepted that. I've accepted that and I'm okay with that. And it's not something that I accept in defeat either. Because again, how could you be defeated when your challenge has never been accepted by anybody? And of course, people can say, well, you don't make money on crypto coins, so we beat you with crypto coins, or we beat you with fucking shit porn memes, and we beat you with sociopathic fucking, they can say, oh, we beat you with this, we beat you with that, we beat you with this. That's fine and true if those are the metrics that you're using. The metrics that I'm using, though, are rooted in realism and rooted in truth and rooted in um, public, you know, public debate. That's the challenge. Those are the metrics in which I measure and have always measured. Um, the challenge for supremacy. So, and that challenge has gone unanswered um, by anybody. So, and what also is annoying about this is that I have to now explain, I have to now sift through and explain and investigate and try and communicate shit that the vast majority of you guys are well more informed on and is outdated for the most part, um but then I don't care about. I don't care about NFC and crypto culture. I don't care about it. I do not care about Remilla and Charlotte Fang 77. Outside of the context of it affecting and consuming my entire life, I wouldn't belittle it. There are cool aspects to it. There are good things about it. In the context of consuming and absorbing every aspect of my life, I can still find things to compliment about it. The culture and the leaders and the effect on my life and the execution of and then the execution of stolen identity, then coupled with such degrading and belittling and absolutely delusional narratives in the sense in the ways in which that it all manifests. Ridiculous. I don't even care, though. I don't even care. This is not is I don't care, and neither do people who aren't on 4chan, Reddit, and Twitter. Neither do they. You know? So, have I. Is there the potential, because I wanted to save the truly in depth exploration of these things for. I wanted to save the true exploration and commentary of these things for. For when I was doing this, is there the potential that for the fact that I don't know, we'll see. We'll let it play out in real time. So, through the exploration of my files, and through the reorganization of my files, and through the subtle, lingering awareness of the presence and existence of this, and coupling that with the assumption that I had that it's pretty much died out, and in the pursuit of rediscovering and shaping what my life and my future and creative endeavors look like, and so on and so forth, and the desire to begin working on the content and the things that I want to work on without it being hijacked by sociopaths, I was reintroduced to Remilla, which is an art collective, I guess you could say. I don't really know how they define themselves. And again, this is me having to explain a shit that the vast majority of the audience or whatever is far more far more aware of, and of course I will not know all of the history or the lore or the context or the moving pieces or so on and so forth, obviously. And its current relevance is unclear to me. So I am putting myself at risk of looking stupid, pretty much, simply because not only is this something which I discovered literally almost like 3 years ago, like in 2023 at least, if not 2022. But what I'm more concerned with is the I'm not concerned with trying to explain something that I know nothing about to the people who have been involved for the entire time and have been aware and present for it on social media. Sorry I couldn't, be there as a fucking you know, observer, in uh, in realistic context. But what I'm more concerned about is explaining it both to the people who don't know anything about it, who are given the narrative of me and my life by who the fuck ever, and for that's who I'm concerned, and explaining the context in which it relates to me in my life, and trying to make sense of it too. I mean, I can admit that, trying to make sense of it, because it doesn't make any sense to me, but trying to make sense of it. So that as a little fucking caveat. So I'm actually going to kind of reverse engineer backwards. Well, no, actually, we'll just start right there. We'll just start with Remilla.org. Or I think it's Remilla.org. I don't even know. Remilla. Oh, the cult too. Yeah. And there's tons of moving pieces to this whole ecosystem. I will say the leader, for context, the leader of Remilla, Charlotte Fang 77, who there's a very high likelihood is both of these possibilities are, or both of these scenarios are possible. It could either be the pseudo anonymous fucking persona of one of these real life, one of these people that I engaged with in real life. It could also be, my mother just got home. It could also be someone who's completely fucking random in this, and it doesn't matter to me either way. And I quite honestly don't have any interest in really figuring it out, because it doesn't make a difference to me. But this seems to be kind of the central hub, or the most relevant place to start, I guess. And I don't know what the conclusion of this investigation is, to be honest, but for context, Charlotte Fang 77 is the leader of this collective. And since I found myself back here, I was kind of peeping their Twitter just to kind of see where, what they would have going on. Hold on one sec. Charlotte Fang, 77, is the leader of this little group. And so since I found myself back here and re-exploring and reconfirming the relevance that it had on, or as it relates to all of this situation, I was kind of peeping their Twitter to see, what, if anything, they would have to say, like, in real-time reaction. So, Charlotte Fang, and I haven't seen any. I'm sure there is, one or two more at this point. But, let me tell you what I had explored first. I was aware of Milady, and as soon as I became aware of Milady, I was convinced that it had some sort of connection to this stuff. There was another opposing clique or fashion or whatever that I'm trying to remember what it was. I will, of course, in exploration of this. But so in response to my recent the recent resurgence of my awareness of all of this one particular microcosm of all of this, Charlotte Fang 77 and this other account, this is 4 hours ago. So look, there's all sorts of stuff that we gotta read, but this is the most relevant one. Kind of gave me this roadmap of things to explore, right? And the vast majority of this stuff here well, I won't say the vast majority, but a lot of this stuff I had explored previously years ago. This account, this OX Veil being a code word for all of this stuff, the veil of secrecy and the veil is so thin and whatnot and whatever. I recognize this account, and I haven't re-investigated this account, but my instinctive recall of this account is a Colin type. Now, I'll break down the archetypes. It actually is conveniently works into one of the first things that there is to explore in this, the archetypes of the original people involved, and the original 5 to 6 people who were involved in this, and those 5 to 6 people have kind of become their own archetype that I then view, and for a long time assumed that only they and a few others were the ones involved. So that kind of created this this cognitive dissonance, I guess, of interpreting and so when I'm reading through massive amounts of anonymous content that's talking about me and my life, something which is so common, which has become so common, whether it be Cameroon, Kiwi Farms, the list is endless, Twitter, fucking anywhere, everywhere. I mainly put them into one of these archetypes. Now, of course, there was a phase specifically in Cameroon when I was in real time discovering other people that were involved in comparison and contrast to the Cameroon timeline and my real timeline. So that was a fun process to go through of, realizing who was like stalking me and then trying to piece them together, because I was questioning and investigating and discovering the involvement and awareness of people that I know in real life via whether it be, direct engagements or uh, them, revelations discovered through my timeline, from what they're posting on Facebook, the real people. So that in itself was a phenomenon, but then I also had the added layer of knowing that I was being watched in real time by these six archetypes and finding this whole undercover world that they had created. And so trying to determine which of the thousands and thousands and thousands of anonymous Facebook profiles had any relation to people that I knew in real life, and having to play that game of comparison between content and conversations that I was having with real life people based on content that I was uncovering in this hidden world of Cameroon. And but also, so I not only was that a legitimate thing that was playing out in real time, but then I also had to analyze it with the perspective of these six archetypes watching in real time, so that there being a very real possibility that one of those six people, for whatever reason, was impersonating a real person with an anonymous account. You understand what I'm saying? I know that that's a lot of layers of mental illness, but you have real people on a fake account impersonating real people, like with the fake account, but the real person that's being impersonated and the real person that it is aren't like the same person, but it's appearing that way on an anonymous account, and you have to try and figure out that. So that's a lot of fun. Um, in reference to those six archetypes, there is a lot of backstory, a lot of context, and a lot of other lore. That's a whole other world of its own. Is this group of people from high school that was right off the bat there's so many layers to that, but so there's a lot of context there, and it's complicated to try and decide which side of the line I want to toe. I don't know if I want to explain this with and this was actually a whole thing that I was going to do. If I could if I could actually like draft things out and whatnot without it being in real time and whatever. But I was going to kind of flip the whole like who are you concept, because it really is like a question that has been prevalent in my mind over the last few months. Is like, who are you in the sense of the audience? Like, who am I talking to? You know what I mean? That's why just passively ignoring this shit and moving on with the content that I actually want to do is so problematic, because when you have the involvement of this shit, and then it's such a, like, I don't know, but the flipping the concept of like the who are you, which was always, again, a manipulated concept from the get-go, but in terms of its perception and projection outside of me and the actual messaging behind it, but just something as simple as that, as establishing like who is the audience that I'm speaking to, is so convoluted. And then that then becomes problematic in the sense of, do I really have to sit here and explain everything to you step by step, in as if you know nothing? Or can I generalize certain concepts? Can I breeze through certain phases and whatever? And I truly don't know the answer to that. That's truly a conundrum, because there's large swaths of people who I'm not speaking to, even though they're in attendance. There's large swaths of people who have certain pieces of the story that I have to, take into consideration with my with my communication. There's large swaths of people who are uh, instantaneously uh, combating anything that I say with other pieces of information. There's large swaths of people who may know nothing, and then I have to oversaturate what I actually want to talk about and what I actually, want to do with all of this pretextual information. So, this, so I was keeping an eye on Charlotte Fang because even back when I discovered Milady the first time, it's just endless, 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 endless. It takes me back. Everything takes me back to, certain different, times and phases of shit that I just don't even really think about anymore. Like, Milady is taking me back to my days at Hilton, and the discovery of Elon Musk's involvement or awareness, and it's just things that I don't even think about anymore. But because you see, some people, and I'm being 100% honest with you right now. Some of the people that I'm the most concerned with communicating this shit effectively to, literally have no idea, nor do they really care about shit coins and NFTs. Like, the people that I'm engaging with on a day-to-day basis, the only awareness that they may have of shitcoins and NFTs is whatever the fuck the crazy people tell them that only benefits them. You know what I mean? And then, ugh, God, God. So, Milady has always been intriguing. Oh, and okay, so we should probably put an end date on this. 2023 seems to be the last time that well, this is Remilla. But NFT, well, then Colt too. Colt was just last winter, I think. So it's hard to kind of gauge. Well, it's still active. It is still active. It's at least a bygone era of a still active community. Um, and I'm trying to think of what my first introduction to Milady was. I know that it was while I was working at Hilton, and when I was first beginning to explore the idea of NFTs and shitcoins, because Twitter was, for a long time, I just didn't even really, because you have to think about the timeline. So it wasn't until I had left the factory, went to, so that's 2022, the winter of 2022. No, the winter of 2021. Because it was the fall of 2021. It was the spring of 2021 that all this shit started. It was the fall of 2021 that I went back to the Oasis. It was the winter of 2021, going into 2022, that I was at Perbaco the first time. That was the Sandra Whitworth era. Then I was jobless for a considerable length of time, because that's when Betty White died, and everybody made the revelation, the real revelation, because of Deb and Shanika and whatever the fuck Daisha's best friend was, Ashley. That was when all of these people became obvious, and I was talking to Sandra Whitworth. Then I went to the factory. So this is in 2022 that I went to the factory. I was there throughout the summer and into the fall. I left there and went to Flat Rock for those 2 weeks. That's when I became aware of Elon Musk. That's when I got on Tumblr because I hadn't been on any social medias with the exception of Facebook. Got to throw Kaylee in there and all that shit. So I hadn't been on any social medias with the exception of Facebook for a considerable chunk of time. And the considerable chunk of that time was just endlessly, compulsively exploring Cameroon. So then it was when I was working at Flat Rock that I went to Tumblr and Twitter, and I realized Tumblr's entire branding. There was a thriving community on Tumblr, but the community on Tumblr had such a vastly different tone than. I gotta cook my dinner soon. Such a vastly different tone than Cameroon. Like, it was funny and creative and entertaining and not. It was more easily digestible because it wasn't Africans. It was, you know, internet profiles. And that was way more easily digestible. And around the same time of getting back onto Tumblr, I got back onto Twitter. Getting onto Twitter is what led me to Elon, particularly Lex Friedman's awareness. And then that was the introduction to Bagman Sten and that whole realm. And it was through that process. Well, I don't know. There's some kind of lull in there because I didn't really start to get into NFTs and crypto until. Was it Pepe? Was that the other one? It's not Bored Apes Club, but I think it was Pepe. But I didn't really start to investigate. I know when I became aware of Milady, it was in 2023 at Hilton. And the first prominent, memorable moment, the first real big moment of Milady, it was around the time that I took my grandpa to the air show, which was in the so this is summer 2023. When I took my grandpa to the air show, and it was so uncomfortable because people were literally like snapping their necks to follow us, and it was just very unnerving. Like, it didn't feel safe. It didn't feel like a safe environment, and my grandpa was completely unaware of what was going on. And my I had like broadened my understanding of the scale and the scope. There was a lot going on at this time, but it was literally within, I want to say, like within the same week, if not that weekend in particular. When I woke up, it was literally not the second that I opened my eyes, but the second that I was like fully awake. I instantly got a notification. This used to happen all the time, where I would get notifications very very like they were clearly timed for my attention and reaction. And it was literally the second, like I'm not even kidding you, I could not have been awake and conscious for 2 minutes, but the second that I sat up from waking up, I got a notification. And at the time, I was subscribed to Elon and Adrian's tweets. Like, I would get the push notifications for Adrian and Elon's tweets. And the second that I sat up, I got a notification, and it was a tweet from Elon with the meme of Milady that said, "This is not a meme, I love you." That was the first memorable moment of Milady. But this was within, just for like sake of error, I'll say that, you know, it was like in within a span of like a few weeks, but realistically, I think I'm pretty confident that it was within that week that I took my grandfather to the air show. Um, Probably within the same weekend. Um, and of course, Elon was manipulating me at the time too, and I had no real understanding of what exactly was the purpose of his awareness or involvement or what he was trying to accomplish or whatever. Uh, so delusion and mania was high at this point. Um, so at that particular point, I didn't, I was not in the place to um, explore this effectively with any sort of realistic assessment. And at that time, and for the majority of this time, and even still kind of to this day, the implications and the frustration and the just the way in which all of this has been introduced to me has made it so infuriating to try and read or try and gather, to have to have to try and figure out your life through fictional content that is so complex and so elaborate and so wide ranging. Very similar with Cameroon. It was infuriating to me to discover this and to have that fucking bitch Jessica and those people in Cameroon who would try to be supportive and, you know, whatever. And then and then the same thing happened with real people on Facebook and continually. But to have that reality denied to you and then to be led in these, you know, to these things that you're then supposed to not get angry about, not misunderstand, not critique, not you know, like, it's like I'm sitting here jobless and been sent to the hospital for no reason, got people blocking me, you know, police called on me, family thinks I'm crazy, yada yada yada. Everyone who clearly obviously knows what's going on is telling me that they have no idea what I'm talking about, and then I'm led to the profile of a Cameroonian African or you know, or a Milady NFT meme, and I'm supposed to then make the necessary assessments and draw the correct conclusions from that. And you know what I mean? So, but the context in which I need to hold on. All while it's like all while I'm being lectured and criticized and analyzed on all of these comparatively ridiculous metrics, such as, you know, what I drink and eat and sleep and whatnot. It's like this shit like abruptly came into my life, fucked it all up. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Then they steer me to some fictional narrative that I'm supposed to analyze, correctly and effectively and whatnot. And the vast majority of the time, the substance that was being discussed in those fictional portrayals, like, it's like, okay, that dumb bitch Jessica, it's like, that stupid bitch. That stupid fucking bitch. And I think that stupid fucking bitch. Ugh. But so, anyways, the context in which Milady was originally assessed by me, which may very well be the case, or have been the case at one point. I don't know yet. But the way that it was originally perceived by me was that Milady was a break off and slash or opposition fraction of the larger group of observers or watchers or whatever. It was that Milady was a supportive counteractive collective of people who were like offensively defending me against the people who were like stalking me and shit, right? And again, this is a long running thing. This was prevalent in Cameroon, and I just can't explain the level of infuriation that induces. Not saying that this is the truth, of what Milady actually represents, but this is how I perceived it at the time. And not only is just having to figure that out infuriating, but to then watch all of this complex warfare go on in my name that's affecting my life, and then having to just put it, to just have it in other people's hands, like that dumb bitch Jessica and the supporters of the Cameroonian manifestation of all of this. And still to this day, the people who are speaking or acting in my defense are often just as wrong as the people that they're arguing with about me and my life. And I have to sit and watch it play out and watch everybody be wrong. And then I will identify somebody through their anonymous account and, whatever, confront them in direct, real terms, and whether they be, supportive or oppositional, they'll deny it. From an oppositional perspective, that makes sense. They're, of course, not gonna, whatever. And then their narrative will be that there are no supporters, just everybody's making fun of you. But I know that that's not the case with the people that have been sucked into it, and with depth of uh, the depth of the arguments that I've seen play out, and the like enthusiasm of the arguments that I've watched play out, and the complexity of the subcultures and whatnot that have been created in my honor, and then just simply the scale and scope of it all. So my original perception of Milady was that my lady fit into that archetype of defenders of me who were, in my defense, trying to beat the oppositional forces that were fucking my life up at their own game, on my behalf. And then expecting me to analyze all of this one microcosm when we have this microcosm and this microcosm and this microcosm and this microcosm all simultaneously. And of course, not only does nobody know what I'm talking about in real life, but it's not even real to begin with. You know, they expect me to then effectively analyze that one particular microcosm of what's going on, and then understand, adapt, engage in interject myself into and engage with this microcosm, and for it to not be a big deal. Like, for me to not be upset about any of this, as it's having real life effects on my real life and my real family and my real friendships and my real mental health and my real everything. You know what I mean? So, and then on top of that, and again, this was something that actually presented itself far before my lady, but was exponentially evident with my lady in particular, as far as my original perception of it was that not only are you denying me the information, the confirmation, the validation, and the information that I need to actually respond to things that are having real life, real effects on my real life. And that not only are you denying me of all of that, and then not only are you gaslighting and crazy making me, telling me that it's not real and you have no awareness or involvement of this. Not only that, and then not only are you investing in arguing with sociopathic people who are attacking my life anonymously on fake social media accounts on my behalf, because I can't do it myself because of the aforementioned, denial of access that you didn't give me. But arguing wrongly on my behalf, and then it's monetized, and then you're monetizing it on top of that. Now, and then I'm not supposed to be mad or upset. You know what I mean? And then now, all of this in context, because when I try to explain this particular portion of it, the sociopaths say, like I said, well, nobody's on your side, whatever. But again, I know that is not the case, or at least was not, in the beginning or whatever. And at certain, now it's more so completely detached parasocial admirers and defectors and whatnot, and I know that it will piss people off, and that the opposition will eat it up that I'm being so critical of them. But you have to understand that that wouldn't be the case if you were to actually develop and maintain and pursue that in real life. And then it's not even necessarily in a lot of the cases I probably don't even want that. You know what I mean? Sorry, but um, but it would certainly be different if you know whatever. And then with the opposition, not only it it doesn't matter with the opposition, because I could engage with the opposition more effectively, and even more so fun. This is what the opposition doesn't understand, is that not only would I and do I not really care about this shit. Like if it was only oppositional, then it would then it I wouldn't care, truthfully. um if I retained my real life support and whatnot, um and if I were not denied the validity of it in real life, then it wouldn't be. And they know that. Of course, the opposition knows that. That's why they worked so hard to make that the case. But what the opposition doesn't understand is that because they didn't want to, because they didn't want this to be the case, because they're selfish and they're keenly aware of my potential and my abilities. But what they don't understand is that, you know, well, I'll say a fraction of them don't understand, because even the opposition is so compartmentalized and nuanced that you can't even speak about the opposition in generalized terms. Because if you speak about the opposition in generalized terms, then you're doing a disservice to certain people. But if you try to acknowledge the disservice to certain components and compartmentalized fractions of the oppositional fraction, then you risk um, for lack of a better word, romanticizing or emboldening the truly sociopathic side of the oppositional forces. So, the oppositional forces themselves are even compartmentalized. And like I said, you can't even speak about them in generalized terms, because just thinking about the archetypes of the oppositional forces, because of those original six, two of the four oppositional forces, so literally 50%, were people who were smart, bored, funny people who were looking for. Let me not let there be any ambiguity here. The opposition of the six archetypes slash the original, where this all originated: Colin, Devin, Quincy, Jessica, Paige, Nevin. Six. Colin, Devin, Nevin, Quincy, Paige, Jessica. Those are the six where, to me, this originates. That's the core, and they represent the six archetypes in which I often analyze and sort the anonymous commentary of my life. Of those six, Colin and Devin, truly sociopathic. with absolutely no regard, no boundaries, no limits, no concern, no conscience, no remorse, no, truly no even motivation or anything. Just absolutely dangerous, sociopathic, relentless manifestations of, it sounds dramatic, but like just truly manifestations of like evil. Those two. Quincy and Nevin, smart, bored, reactionary, people, dudes who were looking for creative outlets, who wanted to have fun, who, from their perspective and in their position of knowledge and understanding and awareness of the topics at that time and whatnot, truly thought that I was like a ridiculous person. And I don't fault them for that, because they hadn't been exposed to these ideas which have now become mainstream that I was on before everybody else. And they are creative ass, funny ass fucking guys who were bored and, you know, whatever, and who were looking for, they had boundaries and consciousness and connection to me in reality. Devin and Colin, none at all. Quincy and Nevin and I have interacted and been familiar with each other for years, not to any great extent to the both of them, but we at least had familiarity, and we at least had history, genuine, in-person, real-life history rooted in reality. Not to say that that hadn't dissolved over time, and not to say that they had no malicious intent at all, nor not to say that they were not intended to embarrass, ridicule, monetize, you know, not that they weren't on board with the exact same shit, and not that they didn't participate in the exact same shit, but there is a clear level of division between those, you know, the two groups of those four. And, you know, that's where a lot of the complexity begins, because Quincy and Nevin, I would have never, even though, you know, unbeknownst to me, they didn't abide by these same rules of engagement, but, you know, in the initial phases, I was unwilling, and Quincy and Nevin were the ones, I think, that they knew that the shit that I was doing was dope. They knew that it had potential, and they were trying to motivate me. They were trying to show me tough love, for lack of better concern. Colin and Devin were intent on destruction, and you know, I'm fairly confident in drawing those lines between those four. So, you know, even that is compartmentalized and complex and nuanced, and, you know, and then I have to speak in these generalized fucking terms where if I don't over explain all of this shit, then I'm at risk for either offending Nevin and Quincy and pissing them off, and motivating an escalatory retaliation in defense, because it's like, dude, I was just trying to, you know, what the fuck, we're just having fun type shit, blah 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 blah. But then I'm also at risk for humanizing Devin and Colin, both of which are equally problematic, and especially so from an outsider's perspective, or from the perspective of a Kaylee or a Jessica or a Deontay, or so on or so forth. If I'm not crystal clear in those distinctions, then, you know, I'm not only at risk for the consequences coming from within that oppositional group to begin with, but then there's also secondary consequences that I'm at risk for sustaining in response from supportive forces. But this is all, you know, in the bouts of mania, for one, in the being presented to me in fictionalized fucking ways, for two, for three, me reacting to, like, I know Bo remembers that. I know he does, because it's very true. Elon, what the fuck you know about some very true, Elon? You don't even know where that originates from, sir. Actually, I don't even want to call you sir anymore. Crying in the White House with a black eye. And I told you that was going to happen. Regardless. Uh, Very true. Very true. That's a me and Bo thing. Okay? And, it perfectly highlights the problematic nature of that generalization of me, you know, having to differentiate real people from their fictionalized personas, because real people with their fictionalized personas will be trying to gauge or invoke a certain reaction out of me, and then I will react in with the information that I have and whatnot, and they think that that's indicative into the complexity of my brain, and think that it would generate the same reaction as it would, under normal circumstances. And that's not to downplay the reactions that, would come, but um, you know, it's and this kind of plays into, I guess, the overall theme of this shit, is that, and something that I've again said for a long time, it's more delusional to ignore this shit than it is to acknowledge it, right? That's more delusional and detrimental to my mental health, and to, my whatever. But so the evolution of that concept that I've been saying this entire time is that it would have been, in the context of what I'm talking about right now, it would have been equally dangerous to not see the level, like, but you see, from Colin and Devin, it was so obvious that I knew that from the beginning, because of the way that things played out with Devin and Paige, and then the complete fucking irrelevance of Colin. You know what I mean? So I knew, fucking around with those two in the beginning, I knew that just with their presence and involvement, that these were crazy motherfuckers that I wanted nothing to do with. But I then only had the option to, and that's exactly what happened, is that, everyone associated is associated with that energy. But then, people want to get pissed off at me and whatnot. So, and what I think the true origins of this are those competing factions within those original 6 archetypes. And I've always thought that. I've always thought that it was Jessica and Paige on my side, with Nevin and Quincy in the middle, Devin and Colin in opposition, and I believe that is the foundation of all of this. Is that group, those 6, trying to run me through the pooch parade. What do you call that? The dog show. When the pretty little dogs with the luscious hair trot around. I'm just gonna call it the pooch parade. They want to run me through the pooch parade, and see what my overall score is. And they're over there arguing with each other, unbeknownst to me. And then I got to deal with the shit, and then it expands and expands and expands and expands and expands. And then you got, that's what I've always thought the origin of this is, and I stand by that to this day. So, when I was originally introduced to Milady, this was to me about the 6th iteration of the Jessicas and Paiges, you know, trying to fight on my behalf while having no concern. The depths in which this shit pisses me off is endless. But regardless, that was my initial perception of Milady. Now, my initial reaction to it, Milady, and this also includes things such as Pepe and many other NFTs and shitcoins that, and just the general concept as I was being introduced to it. Of course, looking at it through the lens of the effect that it's having on my life and watching the way that people are using it in carelessness for my life. I'm so glad I thought about this. Remember when this shitcoin fucking NFT shit started in the depths of 2020, when Devin and Paige and Colin, or not Colin, Devin and Paige and Daisha and all of them, when it was a topic of discussion amongst us as still interactive fucking components, right? Before all of this shit. Remember that the aura, I want everybody on the internet to remember this shit. How all of this shitcoin NFT shit started was with Robinhood and GameStop, okay? And the entire fucking concept of it was stealing from the rich for the poor. That was the entire concept of it, is redefining our fucked up ass economy and our fucked up ass societal fucking hierarchy and making it an even playing ground for everybody. That was how this shit began. That's what you motherfuckers were talking about. Using your fucking Robinhood, and look at where you've come. Look at what it's come to. You know what I mean? Hawk Tua, or Hawk Puta, I mean. But my original assessment of the NFT and shitcoin shit is through the perspective of the effects that it's having on my life. And again, this is pretty much happened at every layer of this, every step of this, is that, I become aware of some shit, and then people act like I'm overreacting in a negative way. I'm taking it too seriously, blah, 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 blah. But you want to know what? You fucking go through. We were at least 2 years, probably closer to 3 years deep at this point when I got here to Milady and fucking Pepe the Frog and shit. Now Pepe the Frog did make an appearance with Deborah in the very beginning, my Aunt Deb. And that's what really unlocked, that whole layer of it. But we are 2 years deep into this of all of this shit happening in my life and all of the effects that it had at this point, and truly sadistic. I mean, at this point in it, I won't take it as far now, but at this point of the story, in late 2022, early 2023, fucking the depths of it, the climax of it, the peak for some of you motherfuckers, we were dealing with truly sadistic, reckless, dangerous fucking disregard and normalization of exploitation and active participation to sell fake money and fucking cartoon coins. And then we had fractions of that community acting like I was just supposed to hop on board, and that the amounts of money that you could make were somehow supposed to, like, no, that is a fucking um a hard line disconnect between, me and it's no tea, no shade that, some of you don't feel this way, especially those of you who don't fucking know me. But still, this goes back to, if I was watching this unfold on the fucking internet, and here you got your little fly drone flying around. If I was watching this unfold on the internet, I would not be quiet about it. If this was happening to one of my friends, I certainly wouldn't react in the way that my supposed friends did. Not in temptation of the money, nor in intimidation by the sociopaths. There's no way in hell that I would let this happen to Kaylee or Daisha or Jen or fucking Quincy or Nevin or Paige or fucking anybody. There's no way in hell. And I do stand by that, and I've always stood by that. There is no way in hell I would sit idly by and watch that play out and have any fucking contemplative fucking dilemmas about whether or not, I'm gonna participate or just, sit idly by and watch the shit happen. Because if you think about it truthfully, all of us, I guess, we're lucky that, for one, the extortion of my persona and my life and my personality and whatnot was so lucrative and had such longevity, and we're lucky that I'm not as crazy as you all told me that I was, or thought that I was, or acted like I was. Because if either of those weren't the case at this moment in 2022, 2023-ish, the height of insanity that was taking place in my head, in my home, in my reality, all around me, on my social media feeds and out in public, trying to take my grandfather to the fucking air show and trying to work at Flat Rock with those. Flat Rock damn near literally turned in that was probably, I'm not kidding you, the most dangerous, legitimately dangerous situation that I have ever been in my entire life, because I was surrounded by people who were so that were so fucking I was dealing with true fucking mass hysteria. I was surrounded by mass hysteria at Flat Rock. Those people were so cluelessly, not necessarily a fault of their own in that regard, but they were so adamantly hostile toward me for reasons which they, thought that they were true. And they were so crazy in the way that it manifested itself. Those people, the way that they acted was crazy. And looking back on it now, that was literally such a dangerous position for me to be in, because they were so outwardly crazy. And then, if I weren't so, whatever word you want to use, it doesn't even matter what adjective you want to plug in here, but if I weren't so whatever, I would have turned into like a mass shooter or something, you know? So we're lucky in that regard that I have the resolve and the, you know, the intelligence, quite frankly, to not believe that I'm going crazy, to not believe that it's the CIA because I'm talking about aliens and Donald Trump, to not believe that I've lost touch with reality, to not believe any of the shit that everyone told me, and to let that completely dissolve my brain. And we're lucky that I have a sense of morality, and we're lucky that I have a sense of fucking, groundedness, because if not, if this were to happen to anybody else, they would go like do a mass shooting, and you motherfuckers would have live streamed it for puppy dog coins. And then on the flip side of that, certain people, I've come to understand now that it is much broader and much more widespread than just those six archetypes. But that's even worse, because who's to stop? Who would have? Who like? There are there are people involved with this who are so crazy. Again, crazy, that we're lucky someone hasn't literally come and murdered me and my family because they think over some shit that has nothing to do with us. Some fucking transvestite shit that has nothing to do with us. Some fucking, I mean, my god, the shit that's been attached to my name that literally has nothing to do with me. That people, that radicalized people on the fucking internet, radicalized anonymous people who have access to every, fucking aspect of my life freely given away by other so fucking ridiculously crazy people. And people just, stood idly by and, you know, acted like I was supposed to, acted like it was no big deal for fucking puppy dog coins. And yeah, I understand that there is and was and whatever, a lot of money into it, but it's still, as people are creeping through my fucking home, and you're telling me that I need to drink more water. I mean, please. And then you guide me in, to fucking fictionalized fucking things, the fictionalized fucking narratives that are themselves being manipulated by these crazy people, and who are on there saying that they're gonna do crazy things to me and my family. You know what I mean? And I can't talk to any. I can't tell not only do I have the police called on me, but I can't tell the police don't believe me and all this other shit. And then even now, that was just something that I had forgotten about. But that was just referenced in this fucking spite.fr bullshit that I'm going to show you. And then my perception, my anger about my, reaction to NFT and shit coin culture that, mind you, was rooted in Robinhood. Rooted in Robinhood. That's how it became so big. Stealing from the rich to give to the poor. Get your fucking drone out of my face. Rooted in Robinhood. This NFT and shit coin culture bullshit. And then when my reaction to it is, what the fuck does this have to do with me, and why the fuck is this why is this the reason? Because I felt like when I first discovered NFT and shitcoin culture and my lady and all of this, I felt like, and I still actually think that that's the closest to the holy grail that I've ever found, that I've spent 5 years of my fucking life needlessly searching for a holy grail to prove that I know what I've known to be true since literally 15 minutes after I first discovered the shit is true, because nobody else will give me that confirmation. And So when I react to it as, what the fuck is this? It's so pointless. There's no substance. Some of this is true. And this is what is, blah, blah, blah. When I react to it like that, it's just like, oh my God, well, like. And then again, this was 3 years ago that me discovering this. And, and then I got people bitching and whining on their fake accounts about how nothing in my life changes. When nothing in my life has changed, you gotta understand the shit that I was reading on spite.fr this morning. These bullshit ass fucking fictionalized stories that literally come off as if they were written by teenagers. That is how this shit started. We have this situation has literally progressed 0%, because that is the point. But it has progressed 0%. And this is not directed towards the opposition, because again, to the opposition, that is the point. But to the fucking people that bitch and whine about how, and, maybe I am potentially putting myself in a bad position because I'm, alienating and critiquing my so-called support group. But think about it think about it. And now as we see that all of the things that I was talking about had legitimacy, had relevance, and has now become mainstream, pretty much. And I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I deserve to toot my own horn. Pretty much every fucking trending topic in pop culture, every, the influence and impact of this shit, which is a direct copy and paste of my aesthetic and interests and whatnot. And then now, and I still, I don't even mourn the projects that I didn't finish that would now be so historic or whatever. I don't mourn the fact that I had the insights and the inspiration and the ideas for all of these things, aliens and artificial intelligence and even schizophrenic hacking and fucking all of this shit. I don't mourn that. But there is so much of that, and I have more. I have more. And I'm now even in a more humbled position, like I said, where there are so many creators who have become the face of these different topics and whatnot. And it's my day off. And I can't even get a little boo thing because of my boo. And my boo. And I've said all of this shit 1,000,000 times. Don't you understand? And then the option is argue with Charlotte Fang 77, Crown Prince of what? Charlotte Fang 7. Look at this. What is it? Charlotte Fang, Crown Prince, Love Heals. How is this? And trying to dig through this and trying to react to it and respond to it and whatever. How is this any different than Mr. Royalty story time 5 years ago? You know what I mean? Now. Shit. Fuck. Now. With all that being said, Of course, I think that this shit is dope. I think that there's dope aspects to this shit because I influenced so much of it. Of course, I think that there is an overall aura of irrelevance to it because I don't understand the point of trading money for puppy dog coins. And yeah, it's cool that you can make a bunch of fucking money off of puppy dog coins, and it's, that's cool. There is cool. There's that's obviously attractive to everybody. I think that it's dead. I think that we've moved more so on to, other shit. I'm going to find out through my exploration of this. But I do. Let's go to this spite. I mean, there's so much to explore. We could get live reactions from Twitter. We could. I don't know if. But this spite.com, this is where I got led to today because, I've been doing, fucking, explorations of this shit, and let's see what Charlotte Fang has to say. Hey everyone, I just wanted to share a thought. I really hope I can do it without anyone jumping on me because it's simply my personal opinion, nothing more, nothing less. Some of you might agree with me, others probably won't, and that's totally fine. What matters to me is being able to say it in a respectful way without insults, negativity, or unnecessary drama that doesn't really lead anywhere. I think we all have the right to express ourselves, even if we don't all see things the same way, as long as it's done peacefully and with respect for each other. So if you don't mind, I'd like to say, my lady, that's a crock of fucking shit. And that's a crock of shit with the intention. I mean, come on now. That's a crock of shit. That's a crock of shit. And that was done to fucking to like I mean, how do you even say it? But that was done to like preemptively that was done to like preemptively take away from the shit that I'm saying right now. And it's fine. I don't care. But it's a crock of shit. And my problem is that this is the leader that I have been led to. Charlotte Fang, Crown Prince of whatever. This is the leader that I have been led to, essentially. Milady is, from what I can gather, the core, the closest, like I said, the closest thing to the holy grail of this that I have found. I thought that both previously, and I still stand by that now. This is the leader of Milady, and I can't engage with him directly. You know what I mean? He won't, and I don't even care to. That's really the thing. And so now I find myself in an argument or in a position where, in order to progress in my own life, I have to acknowledge all of this shit. And I just don't want to. Like I said, I don't care who Charlotte Fang 77 is. I don't care if it's Colin. I don't care if it is a complete stranger who just discovered my live stream posted by Colin on 4chan and took advantage of it, or any of that. I don't want to be and you know what even makes this even more of a crock of shit, what this is saying, is this is not, from what I gather, it's not even what I gather. This is not the energy that this dude, projects. He's trying to save his own ass and make me and just take away from my point here. But I can look at all of this Remilla shit so objectively. I can, and I do. Cult, the cult coin, the entire, of course, like I said, of course, I think that the aesthetics and the branding of it is cool because so much of it was ripped off of me. So of course, I'm gonna think that it's cool. Beyond that, there was shit that didn't come from me that I think is cool. The implementation of it, I think, is cool. Does that take away from from all of this other shit that it's done and been responsible for? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And does it take away from the fact that now all of those things that were stolen from me have been oversaturated to what I amount to nothing more than just money to a bunch of money to a bunch of douchebags? That's really the only end goal that I see from any of this, is that a bunch of douchebags got a lot of money. Okay? And um but does that mean that I either want to get involved or be at war with this community and the people involved in it and the people responsible for it? No, neither. Really, I'd like to move on from my life about it. You know what I mean? Especially because I don't trust any of it. I trust 0% of it. And I've already invested so much of my fucking time and shit. Wasted so much of my fucking time and shit trying to find some golden egg from, you know, it, I'm either being led to by my friends or that is being promised. Like if this were a video game, it's like I'm searching for this golden egg, I find the golden egg, and then either the fucking boss is there, and the decision, that's not even a realistic possibility to me, and I'm not going through the fucking shit to get there, to even get to that point, you know? And so, but then, and this is the conundrum, is that there is so much cool shit about it. And it's like, and then they will like brag about these things. They'll brag about, oh well, we've built like this community, and we've built like these these websites, and blah blah. We've done this and we've done that and we've done that. Well, it's like, and this isn't something that I'm gonna bitch and whine about, just simply because at the end of the day, it really is like on me. But it's like, you know, must be fucking nice to have that freedom, and um, you know, why does, and like I said, what they don't understand is that if they weren't so fucking psychotic about it, like there's that Asmon Gold dude and Hassan Piper. They, and like a Nicki Minaj and a Cardi B, like a fucking Colts and Bears. There is, and then now it's just like, and then this isn't even to mention, this isn't even to touch on the fact of just how many like people in general, like both in real life, both as both in the influencer, well, I could give you a list of 45 people that like I think are cool, dope creators right now, that are like on top of shit, that are creating content that I like, that have never really thrown shade or jabs at me and seem to be entirely unaware and uninvested with this. But for all 45 of those, it has made me so, it has turned me so sour towards so many more and ruined so many potential. Like I should be like, I'm not even gonna get into it, but because it is what it is. But the fact that, like, a long, long time ago, a couple months ago at the very least, I don't remember where it was, like what platform it was. I don't remember what account it was, anything like that. I know that it was a Colin Gruntman archetype. It was somebody that I have associated with Colin Gruntman. But there was some sort of comment made somewhere a couple of months ago where he was like, still, well, we still got 5 more years. It was like hashtag something or another. The implication was, because way back to fuck when I was 25 years old, 6 fucking years ago, I said, on my birthday, I was like, if I let 2020 slip by, I will be 35 years old. And the fucking whatever the fuck, wherever the fuck, whoever the fuck made this comment, I'm certain it was Colin, said something to the effect of, well, we still have 5 more years to go until we're finished, or something like that. And it's because, I mean, honest to God. And then especially when you go into this spite stuff, this spite FR shit, it's like, it's just so much shit is so ruined by the insecurity of what I assume, what I attribute to these two fucking douchebags. These two fucking douchebags that, you know, I never had drama with. I never had problems with. And still, like, and it pisses me off. It pisses me off that I can't have fun on social media. It pisses me off that I can't just freely create and develop things. It pisses me off that all of this shit has been so fucking ruined. And it's not even that I'm hung up on that or stuck on that. It's not even that. It's not even the continuation of both the opposition and the supporters. It's not the opposition or the supporters. It's not any of that shit. It's the fact that I am still just forced to sit here and fucking, like, and you won't let me go. I mean, my God. Milady. The vast majority of the shit that I was exploring today, Milady, Cole, all this is in the same umbrella, but the same Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic, Inu, all of that stuff, that is literally what I was craving. That is what I was craving. Not anymore, Now I have more matured fucking. I would still like to, fucking be, have fun like that, but that is literally what I was craving. And what the funniest fucking thing is, what the funniest fucking thing is you literally go back to day one. Daisha, Jessica, and Paige. What were the reasons? What were the reasons that justified doing all of this to me, that justified me not being intelligent enough or whatever to be included in anything? What were the justifications? What were the reasons for all of this? Aliens, and Donald Trump, and I wanted to fuck Paige. I don't know. I mean, that was one of the reasons, but I could think of a bigger one. But the two mains, literally referenced by Jessica, Paige, and Deshauna. Referenced by everyone, all over the place. Aliens and Donald Trump. Now, who the fuck is gonna send me $30,000? That's all I need. That's all I want. You know what I mean? Like, it's not all that I want. I'm being sarcastic there, and I would never accept that from anybody involved with this shit. But realistically speaking, who the fuck is just and it'd be the craziest thing, because
both the accounts that exude, that dedicate so much time, and so much creative thought, and so much effort, and so many resources, and so much this, and so much that. It'd be the accounts that are the most invested on both positive and negative, you know, ends of the spectrum, that I try to engage with and get absolute radio silence. It's crazy. Now, this little Colin profile down here, this shit, and you see the things that they, the like big old fucking points, the big fucking slobber knockers that they think that they have, are just literally so far off the mark that it doesn't even begin to bother me. It bothers me that, like, I have to pretend to be bothered, that I have to, like pretty much the essence of this right here is, like, it's so fucking off kilter, it's ridiculous. But I've been dealing with that level of delusion for 5 years now, so it's not surprising. But anyways, so they make this little post right here, and they think that they're leading me on some funny corn maze, and think that I won't find anything of relevance from it, right? And they think that the whole point of it is to watch me go through this corn maze, because they think that I want to get to the fucking golden rainbow pot at the end of their fucking bullshit. And then so they think that, for one, that I'm actively pursuing acceptance or like inclusion by them. They think, for two, that I'll be too stupid to realize that I'm being sent through a corn maze, and they think, for three, that I won't find anything of relevance or won't have anything of substance to come from those discoveries. And then for four, it's the process of discovery and / or the lack of motivation to go on that process of discovery that is the whole point to begin with. That's like the whole, whatever. So they give me this little fucking list to go through, right? And because right now this is the central hub. They've regained my attention, and Charlotte Fang 77 is the center of that attention, as of recently. So they're going to take the advantage of it. I know that this shit is Colin. If we were to go through, I bet you this whole profile is just the fucking most annoying shit. Like, I don't even want to go through it. But Charlotte Fang, I listened to a whole interview of him. He's not the worst person in the world. Again, remove the context of fucking up my whole entire life, and we're not that far off on the majority of the points. But I bet you, I can guarantee you that this whole fucking profile is just nauseating. I could almost I don't want to go read through it, but long story short, clearly, as I tend to do, I got led to this Spite magazine, which is ironic. I'm assuming it's a play on the word Sprite or whatever. But God, I just want to jam my fucking head into the corner of my desk, dude. I swear to God. I'm gonna deal with this when we could be having fun, making money. I know I gave Bo a little boner by being real. I know the bitches are hopping around, doing cheerleading exercises and shit, and I got Sakatini to cook. I'm fucking around with this shit. Spent my whole day on this shit. But whoever the fuck, here's a fucking some fucking connection we can all make. Whoever the fuck is on spitefr.com or spite.fr spamming with this, this post I'm talking about, what do you think you're accomplishing there? What do you think you're accomplishing there? Truly. I mean, that's crazy. You're on this crazy site. like, like, what do you think you're accomplishing there, man? But going up against these crazy people, I understand, but it's really wouldn't be so fucking fearful. So I guess we're gonna go through here because this seems to be like a little central hub. I did want to go to the last page and just kind of see like the first post, but this is of course created by Colin, and just insanity. And again, if this was just all like hate, I will say though, I saw a post on here that said Chris Chan Dior. Funniest fucking shit. Chris Chan Dior. Cause funniest fucking shit. Funniest fucking shit. But again, if this was all hate, like, oh come on. Again, 98% of it is just completely fucking stupid, and is no concern of mine. This ecosystem can exist without any real concern for me, from me. But I do want to see the very first post, and then I guess we'll go through and read this shit. I want to go through. It does get pretty elaborate, and it's all outdated. That's the thing. It all seems to have fell off a year or so ago. As far as colds and I'll just throw it out here. The numbers really don't seem to add up. If you really look at the numbers, like sure the monetary numbers are pretty solid, but all engagement as far as like social media accounts and whatnot, you have to cut in half because half is just duplicate accounts by the Collins and the Devons. So, but even then, even without cutting that 50% out, the engagement numbers are all relatively very low. So, that is not to discredit the very real probability that they do have, very sticky fingers or very long fingers into the asshole of culture. But do it without me. That's the whole thing that's my whole thing about it. Is like, if you're so, good at it, then do it without me. You know what I mean? Do it without the influence of me. And again, there's no mourning. I'm glad that I rediscovered this because it made me realize that a vast majority of the concepts and aesthetics and whatnot that that are mine have been oversaturated and are now long outdated, and that is liberating because now I know. Now I am like freed from the weight of trying to go pick those back up and can actually come up, can actually fucking rebuild my shit. And again, to say that, I think that social media, I think that not entirely so, but I think that monetization of, social media content is probably on its last leg. That doesn't discourage me at all from creating content. Like, I'm just going to do my shit regardless. What I will say about my previous content, I mean, it's untouchable, honestly. It's really untouchable, and that energy that it's just, I've never lost it entirely, but I can't wait to just fully embody it again. And I'm pretty much there, like I said, but in a much more matured way. And really, truthfully, the only thing, I wouldn't even say that anymore though after this. I mean, Truthfully. So is this truly the very first post of this? Just know you were asked, but I didn't tell anyone who's asked you. Do you hate me, yes or no? Okay, so not very interesting there, but we will go see live reactions in response to like Twitter and Facebook and stuff. You know, I'd like to go, but it's just gonna piss me off because I can't engage with the funny shit. You know, the funny shit, or but this we could see this and see how fucking ridiculous it is. Maybe we should go. How long have we been? We should just go to like 8 a.m. of today. So we'll jump to like 6 maybe. But this is an intriguing little website. And I don't think that I was supposed to be led here. Oh, yeah, more shit. Well, yeah, it's intriguing up until this point. I mean, it's a lot of shit porn. Like, and this is what I deal with. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so this is last night. So maybe we'll go to like 4. Okay, this is 2:09, so this is last night. Oh, I didn't see this. Ask me anything. I'm an ugly, gay, autistic pedophile, and gangbangers are going to kill me. Right. What else is new? I will say, I kept seeing references to fucking, what is it, Willie Nelson or something? Whoever the fuck married his daughter, or his stepdaughter or whatever. What the fuck's that got to do with me? You know? But they love to just ominously fucking reference shit like that, and the fucking unacceptable, ridiculous shit like fucking, you know, kid shit, and just like ominously fucking. You want to make and shit porn. I mean, you want to make accusations like that, then you come do it like face to face. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I mean when I say it's not even referencing any of those, but still 85%, 95% of the shit is and always has been so detached from me. Like, you remember when I was desperate for love, like, and I'm, you know, so insecure about fucking, like, there's this projection of shit that is literally just so far off kilter that I then have to like deal with when it's not mine to deal with. And it's these fucking like analytical takes on the most mundane shit that the conclusion is literally the most ridiculous fucking shit. It is almost like that. There's actually 2 references that could be made here because to the whole Brian Koberger thing that I've been obsessed with. The first one being that all of these people, all of these content creators have built their career off of this Brian Koberger, off of this Idaho shit, and now they're so desperate they don't know what else to do, and so they're just dragging out the most ridiculous little fucking details. And, you know, I think that is symbolic to a certain degree. A lot of good creators who have, you know, built these little, like, things, you know, like, But the second one is that jail video. Everyone is over analyzing that jail video as if it's so weird, as if his behavior is so weird, when it's really just a 20-second candid clip of him. Like, I mean, my God. But beyond that, that man is the devil. That man, he's the devil. I'm not entirely convinced that he's guilty, but I'm not at all unconvinced that I'm not at all convinced that he's innocent, but I'm not at all he has something to do with it, but I think that drug shit has something to do with it too. Um, Here's that person that was arguing with me, and then this is Colin's dumbass, or probably Devin's dumbass. This probably wasn't Colin. This was probably Devin, but just it's so juvenile, and I have to deal with it everywhere, all the time. Not so much anymore, but that's because I just don't, you know. Same with the Chris guy, just juvenile fucking shit. Finn, like, it's not even good. Chris Chan Dior, hilarious. Fucking, but this shit, what is it? What is he calling this? Studio lights. Not only is this shit asinine, the story in which it's trying to, you couldn't tell this story face to face, even with you hiding behind your anonymous identity, you could not one-on-one with me portray the notions that you're trying to in this. You could not, if you were engaging in a debate with me about the realistic facts of this whole situation, you could not get away with this shit, because it's not true. Any of it, the shit that you're trying to portray here, is not true. And I'm talking about like the minuscule, like fucking, just the littlest fucking like details that you think you're so sly trying to like convey as if it's truth, but it wouldn't hold up to truth. And if you have any disagreements or debates about that, then prove me wrong. But this shit, I don't doubt that this is your delusional ass fucking perception of this. I don't doubt that for a second. But then again, I also reiterate, what is the difference between this shit and Mr. Royalty's story time? It's the exact same fucking thing. And equally as fucking delusional. And projecting this fucking shit onto me that is so far from the truth that wouldn't stand up for a second. I mean, you want to talk about last man standing, a whole other concept from my childhood that you just completely hijacked and fucking... Last man standing. You've never even stood up. You never even walked to the ring. Last man standing. This shit wouldn't stand up for 2.5 seconds if we were talking about it in realistic terms. And yeah, that ruins the fun and blah 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 blah. Well, then again, do it without me though. If you can, like, do it without me. Again, not even mourning all of the shit that you've ruined, all of the shit that, I don't even care. Just move on and continue to do it with the same effect. I don't even care if it has the same effect. I don't care. I hope you make more money and have more influence and more engagement. But just do it without me, though. You know what I mean? Or do we then devolve into shit porn? Is that when that starts to happen? And GPT, please. As if please. But we will see what the hell they have to say about these 4 hours that I've now wasted for everybody talking about. Or is it, again, it'll probably just be shit porn gifs. And all of the, true conversations of fucking substance in all sorts of different realms. I can't even go engage with, you know what I mean? And they themselves will are likely to spin off into some shit that, you know, has no insight for me. Okay, let me spend some time with her, but getting my new car today, so we'll be busy later. ES, come from the devs. To spit the entrails of muck on your spite post. Had a bunch of rings that had copper wrapped crystals on them with Ankh jewelry. When I shoved him, I say, by the power of the Ankh, brother. You see, like, this is Devin. And I'm so sorry, I guess, but I have the same reaction to this. Like, you were up at 8:49 in the morning to type this. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? PH forgot. PH, oh, you're so clever. Forgot to say you're a pussy. Like, followed me and said, oh, and then someone made the implication that I fucking was on here posting myself this morning. Like, please. Hi, welcome to Sprite FR. May I take your order? Make a whole short fiction story about them. All I was saying was to the studio like author, if he hates wine stock and powder wreck so much, why make shorts? I mean, find better subject matter and style and stop posting swastikas. They won't ever. They might switch to shit porn, but that's about the most you'll get from them, trust me. You'll get super, like, if they if they literally just invested all of the energy into something like, I'm so annoyed that I spent this fucking night doing this shit. She was quite dense. Studio light, the mockery of mirrors. You miss, like, it began as these things always did, with a critique, not a famous one, not one who could destroy careers with a paragraph, but with a persistent one. Oh yeah, I'm not reading all this shit, sorry. But the mockery of mirrors, right. And then I always feel bad for, like, if, like, when I see this, like, when I see a long ass fucking thing like this, right? If I look at it if I'm reading it in the context of Devin or Colin, I'm so disinterested. If I'm reading it in the context of a Bo or Quincy or whatever, then I feel bad for shitting on it. And, like, still, not the same way in which it used to be, but I still don't want to shit on anybody's creative fucking shit unless it's, fucking right. And you see, it's like, again, all of this can exist, and I have no qualms. If this is how people want to spend their time online, if this is what people want to do with themselves online, it has nothing to do with me, as long as it has nothing to do with me. I don't care if people want to fucking, and that's about it. Nothing really to, and this is the last page, isn't it? Oh no, there's one more page. Now I bet there's fascinating fucking conversations going on, both involving me and in reaction to this, and and not involving me or in reaction to this. I bet there is fascinating conversations going on in spaces and on Twitter. I bet there's all sorts of funny content. I bet there's, and I just gotta miss it all. And it's annoying. It's fucking annoying. It truly, truly is. It truly, truly is. And can't even get a little boo thing if I wanted. That's 138. Let's go to more recent. Not reading through this shit. What is Mary Jane shoes? Take a chicken bone and feed it to a mutt I called Alice, and she had like all sorts of fleas and shit, and goobers caked to her eyes. Yep, that's all. That's my cat and my dog. Yep. Yep. Rats away with the other boys would chase me, but I didn't care because I had been like blessed by the spirit. Ma said, so I felt no pain and shit. And Pa would come home hollering and whoop us. One beat, Ma. Like, this does not offend me at all, because it doesn't. It truly doesn't. And I know that like even giving it acknowledgement makes it seem like that's not the case. And I don't even care if this is if this is the true perception that Devin, because we know this is Devin, has of me. Because I don't even care if that is how he truly perceives me and my family, because it's not true, for one, and for two, it means nothing to me. The only relevance that shit like this has is the fact that I have to be subjected to it. And he grew up Amish. He grew up Amish, bro. I mean, come on now. But do you, like, this shit is, it's so juvenile and so off kilter. And again, I don't even care if he truly, with his whole heart and soul, believes that. It means nothing to me other than the fact that it's omnipresent. And like, do not argue with these. Like, I don't understand who is on here on spite.fr arguing with Devin's dumbass. Again, not sending me a message so that we can, move on, but on spite.fr arguing with him. I will never, ever, ever, ever understand it. I just will never understand it. And again, the generalization, like and you see, like, what was there? What was there? And that was kind of like the holy grail of the day. Now these, dope. Cold coin, dope. Go ahead, splice it. I'll say it again louder if you need me to for your little dumbass promos. Cold coin, dope. But to what extent and for what reason? You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure that is the fucking Rosa Tudor inspired, which is dope. Even the inspiration, like the shit, like I just really want to ram my forehead into the corner of this glass fucking desk. I swear to God, because my hostility, again, even not even factoring in, like, at this point, I've had a camera in my bedroom for over a year now at this point. You understand what I'm saying? So it is not necessarily like those shits about it. It's not even that, bro. It's not even that, bro. It's not even that, bro. Bro. I talked to you nose to nose just like that. We can Eskimo knows the shit. I mean, and then the world is just annoying too. And I want to be having fun, and I can't have fun. I can't have fun, and I can absolutely be productive, but I find it to be annoying to do so just simply because it makes other people money, and shit. And shit. And a lot of you are really funny and cool, and I don't even care if you think like I know. Ugh. I'm gonna have Sakatini. And again, oh, look at this. Maybe nuclear power. Look at this. Look at this. They're really about to do this shit. How fucking annoying. If you motherfuckers would have let me do what I was doing, they would never get away with this. They're really about to do this shit. Look at this. Look at this. They're really about to do this.
What if an interstellar object whirling through our solar system is actually a nuclear-powered spacecraft sent by aliens to test how humans respond? That's what a noted astrophysicist believes might be the case, and he says an image from the Hubble telescope backs him up. Most scientists agree that the so-called Three-Eye Atlas is a comet from another solar system. But Harvard scientist Avi Loeb claimed on this show a couple of weeks ago that it could actually be some type of...
And he's not... They're really about to do this. And I'm gonna let him get away with it too. Let's see how your little shit coins and stocks do then, huh? Because I'm gonna let him get away with it. I'm gonna let him get away with it. Why not? What's the point, you know? We'll see how those stocks do. We'll see how the stocks go. And that's one thing, and that's another thing with the generalization is that, you know, I understand, like, I feel like shit talking shit about stocks and shit coins and whatnot in the context of the Nevin and Quincy archetypes. Because to them, it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me, and I don't want to belittle them for that. A Colin and a Devin. I got Sakatini to cook. You motherfuckers are on my nerves. Wasting my whole day off. Tired of watching YouTube. Tired of watching YouTube. Tired of watching YouTube. A Greg. I gotta send that to my mom. I gotta find something to listen to for while I cook my dinner. Look at this right here. That's not the cop. Nice. Ba-da-ba. I'm so tired of watching YouTube. And then now, like, I feel like I have, made my points for the most part. Again, you can't get on social media. You can't start working on something because if it's not, if you go to, you either gotta stay up all night or fucking. I'm done with all that shit. Done with all that shit. Done with all that shit. Can't even have fun online. Can't even call your friends. MSNBC, look at this. Look at this. JD Vance can't escape the memes. You guys are fucking nerve, MSNBC. First of all, who is it that little... Yeah, please. Please. I won't even... We'll just pretend like we didn't see that, because... If it is or isn't, you're not ready for it. You're just not ready for it. It's an honor. It's an honor to be so memeified. First of all, it truly is. It truly, truly is. You see, people get wrong about the things that are the problems. And I want to be having fun on social media. Doing what I really want to be doing is my research. I want to be doing both at the same time, like I should be able to do. Damn. Now this is, I think I got this in the list. We're gonna listen to this while we fucking. Oh, I thought we had it in the list. I really am so tired of watching YouTube. Well, that's all. My options here are limited for what I do with the rest of my fucking night. Because of this shit. I'm gonna go talk shit on fucking... I wanna see the funny shit.